There are lots of merchants to barter with in Fallout 4, but we usually find them in a town or city. Arturo in Diamond City, Deb at Bunker Hill, Alexis Combs at Vault 81. And even if they're not found at a big town or major city, we usually find them at a marked location to make it easy to travel to them. Erickson at the Horizon Flight 1207, or Trudy at Drumlin Diner, for example. But there are many other merchants in the Wasteland who set up shop far away from cities. These are all of the unmarked merchants that we can find in Fallout 4. If you head outside the front gate to Nuka World and then follow its wall west, we eventually come upon a small body of water on the other side of the wall next to the Galactic Zone. If we wade through the water, we find a little shack. It's open to the elements, but we do find 2 docks here, mattresses, sleeping bags, and even crafting stations. Here we find 3 people, one of whom is named Chelsea.
Sorry, I'm not really good at conversation. Here to trade? Talk to Cora. I'm so tired of being out in the open. How do people survive out here all the time?
Okay, Cora, where is she? Oh, there she is. That must be her sleeping on the dirty mattress. But we see another fellow over here working at the armor workbench. This is a man named Peter.
Hey.
If you need something, Cora's got a few things for trade. Chelsea's so nervous all the time. I can barely comfort her these days. I can't wait to get to Diamond City. It's been a long time since we felt safe. Hope we don't run into ferals tonight.
Well, to find out what these fellows are up to, we have to wake up Cora.
Hey there, looking to trade?
Are you guys heading over to Nuka World?
We're on our way to Diamond City. Some traders we ran into told us about it. High walls, plenty of people. It sounded like a place we could finally make a home.
You guys are all family.
Chelsea's my sister, and Peter's her husband. We had a decent place to stay for a while, but every time we build it up, sure enough, raiders, gunners, you name it. Our parents were killed in the last raid. That was our sign to move on. We're hoping Diamond City will let us start over.
We have 2 choices here to advise them, and once we pick one, we can't go back and change our mind. We can recommend Diamond City.
Diamond City is great. You guys will really like it there.
Oh God, I hope so. After what we've been through, a safe place is really all we want right now. It's not every day I get to hear good news.
Or we can send these poor people to Nuka World.
Diamond City is a bust. Nuka World is where you want to be.
Damn it. I knew it sounded too good to be true. I guess we can always try Nuka World, but I've heard some crazy stories about that place.
What have you heard about it?
Basically, that whole place is run by raiders. One guy even told us they enslave people and make them wear these shock collars.
If you don't go, it's your loss. Just spreading the word.
We'll talk about it. It's just a lot to think about right now.
Nuka World is perfectly safe. You guys would fit right in.
Really? Maybe the rumors we heard weren't true then. I'll talk to the others. I think we'll give it a shot. And let me know if you're up for a trade before we move on.
What do you have?
A little bit of everything. A bunch of odds and ends we grabbed before we left, and whatever we could scavenge along the way.
Let's see what you got.
I got a little something for everyone.
Cora only has around 300 caps to barter with, and her inventory is mostly disappointing. She has 1 weapon, some burnt magazines, but a tidy selection of junk. She even has a bunch of settlement building shipments that you can buy. But the thing that's most useful about her is she sells nearly 500 rounds of 7.62 ammunition. This is the new ammunition that we get with the Nuka World DLC, and it's pretty rare in the game. We can't buy it from any of the merchants in the Commonwealth unless we install mods, and it only drops on raiders we kill here in Nuka World. So it's a good idea to snag this from Cora. With that, she goes back to bed and we can finish exploring this little shack. Strangely enough, nothing in here is set to own, so we can loot the first aid kit by the crates, as well as the psycho on a plate without angering these people. Outside the shack, we find an explosives box with frag grenades inside, some bourbon and purified water on a table, and another crafting station, a cooking station. This is an interesting location because it's also a Nuka World random encounter. We often find them at this shack, but we can find them in other places in Nuka World as well, and they sometimes show up in random encounter hotspots in the Commonwealth. However, even if we find find them in the Commonwealth. After telling them to go to Diamond City here, they don't have any new dialogue. And telling them to go to Nuka World has no effect. Even after sending them to Nuka World and waiting many days, I never found them again. I didn't find them in the marketplace, enslaved with all of the other slaves. I didn't find them in any of the cages inside the Bradburton Amphitheater. I inspected Cora's script, and she doesn't have any other dialogue than what we already heard her say. To find the next merchant, we travel to ArcJet Systems. From the front door of ArcJet, we see a hill off to the northwest. If we climb the hill to the north, at the very top, we find a woman in a lab coat standing next to an umbrella. This is a ghoul doctor named Bethany.
Excuse me.
If you need fixing up, let's get a look at you.
Any news out there, Doctor?
I've been out of the loop. A lot of sick and injured taking up my time. Now, if you need treatment, let me know.
Hear anything, Doctor?
Nothing. Sorry. Just trying to practice medicine.
Yeah. Take a look at me, Doc.
Tell me your symptoms.
She provides all the services of a doctor, removing rads, healing us, and curing addictions to chems, and she functions as a merchant.
I need some supplies, Doctor.
All right, but go easy on the chems.
But her inventory is pitiful, selling just a handful of chems. She lives in a little shack supported by stilts in the middle of an irradiated pool. This is an incredibly toxic pool of water, and since we'll likely stumble upon this place at an early level, it could easily kill us if we're not careful. It's beautiful though. We can appreciate it better if we view it at night. We can then see the glow of the radiation hovering just below the shack. Bethany hangs outside during the day, but during the night she heads indoors. Though I'm not sure why she got stuck in the pool down here. There are two ways inside, through the front door up a ramp, or walking into the pool and going up some stairs. Inside we see her humble bed, and nothing in here is set to owned. We can loot an overdue book and a bunch of produce. We can also make use of a weapons workbench. To find the next merchant, we travel to the Fairline Hill Estates. Facing the estates to the south, if we turn around, we follow the road north-northeast and then veer off the road to the north. At the top of the hillside overlooking the road, we find a dog in a cage. The cage is locked with an advanced lock, and if we unlock it...
Nice.
You're going down.
We immediately get attacked by two hostile hunters. If we don't kill them quick enough, they could kill the dog.
We made that look easy.
However, if we kill them fast enough, we learn that the dog's name is Ted, and Ted turns around and runs west up the hillside. I guess those hunters were using the dog to either hunt for big game, like deathclaws, or maybe even to hunt for humans. The dog was clearly bait. The hunters jumped out of the woods as soon as we unlocked the door. Could it be that they were hunting man? He brings us to a little pond with a trailer home nearby. The pond has junk and toys in it. We see some mute fruit plants and gourds nearby, and a woman wielding a shotgun named Eleanor. Wait, Ted and Eleanor? Could this be a reference to Teddy Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt? This is apparently her home. Heading inside, we find a humble but cozy little home. Everything is set to owned except for a note we find on her table. Eleanor's note. Look, Bosco, I ain't going back. I'm over 60 for God's sake. Let me alone. I've done well enough over the years. Saved my caps. I found a little place in the woods, south of the city. I'm gonna settle in and enjoy my retirement. Not many that can say that these days. So Eleanor used to be a raider. We remember the name Bosco. Bosco was the raider boss at the DB Technical High School. He's the guy who caught rabies and went mad and wore that mascot helmet. Heading outside, we can talk to Eleanor.
Hi.
Hey, Scaver. Let's trade.
Anything been happening around here?
Nothing you'd be interested in. Now, I got merchandise to move here, if you're still buying.
Hear anything lately?
If you don't mind, prefer to just talk shop for now. Got a lot of quality goods here.
Let's see what you have.
She has generic trader dialogue, which is a little disappointing, but her inventory is surprising. She has a decent selection of weapons with medium to rare mods. She even has some weapons that we can purchase as creations from the Creation Club. Here on her inventory, I found an anti-material rifle and a legendary nimble calibrated powerful triple barrel shotgun. The nimble legendary shotgun has a unique look. It has the word nimble scrawled on the barrel and little wings drawn on it. We can find these on a number of merchants around the Commonwealth, and it's good to know Eleanor carries them as well. She has a disappointing selection of junk, but a great selection of ammo. Over 100 and sometimes 200 to 300 rounds of nearly any ammo in the vanilla game. Nearby, however, we find the dismembered body of a raider. Did Eleanor do this? She did have her weapon drawn when we arrived. Could this be one of Bosco's raiders? Could he have sent this raider to retrieve Eleanor? Maybe that's why she was writing her letter, to convince him to stop sending his goons. And on the outskirts of her trailer, we find 2 graves, each of which is marked with a cross. We see a cigar box lying on a rock nearby. Could this be the remains of her husband and child? Both graves, however, are the same size. Maybe it's the remains of an adult child. Or maybe these are the graves of other of Bosco's goons whom he's sent and Eleanor has promptly dispatched. Or a more sinister alternative is that these are the remains of the people who used to live here. Eleanor, being a former raider, found this little home, killed its occupants, buried them, and took it over to be her own. We even see a child's swing set near to a tree, and it's broken. It hasn't been used in some time. And there's a makeshift diving board. I doubt very much that Eleanor played with this. We see all the signs of a child who once lived here but is now missing. Sadly, with Eleanor's limited dialogue, we never get any answers to these questions. To find the next merchant, we travel to Coastal Cottage, walk down to the road, and then take it south. Eventually, we find a ruined bus on a road that goes to the west. To the left is a Mirelurk Queen, and to the right, we see a shack. Yeah, let's go to the shack. I think I'll avoid that Mirelurk Queen. Getting close, we see that this shack has a big glowing neon sign outside that says, "Open." And the proprietor of this shop leans against a wall reading a 200-year-old newspaper. He has some produce for sale outside, and a small little garden where he likely grows this produce. Heading upstairs, we can see a Jangles the Moon Monkey on display. He has some wonderful pre-war posters on this countertop, and when ready, we can order from Leonard Moore.
Hey there.
Best scrap in the Commonwealth. Right here.
Anything been happening around here?
If you don't mind, prefer to just talk shop for now. A lot of quality goods here.
Let's see what you got.
And again with the boilerplate trader dialogue. So disappointing. His inventory is a little disappointing too. No weapons, only 2 apparel items, and a mediocre aid inventory, only a few chems. He's got barely any junk. Really, he's only useful as an ammo merchant. He has quite a selection of ammunition. Heading into his little shack, which doubles as his home, we see a stash of caps behind the counter, but it is set to owned, and his little bed in a cubbyhole. I love finding little shacks like this in the world because it provides a wonderful source of inspiration for creating settler homes in my settlements. This one I think we could make even with the vanilla tool set. To find the next one, we head on over to DB Technical High School. After killing or avoiding the raiders, we can turn around and head south into the city. Heading underneath a building supported by brick pillars, we see signs of habitation. There's a cooking station, a sleeping bag laid out, and a duffel bag with ammunition and grenades inside, which we can loot. Nothing here is set to owned. There's a couch with cooking supplies nearby, and an ammo crate with ammunition inside. There's another sleeping bag here, and we find its owner by looking off to the east. Inside a little garage, we find a ghoul named Slim. He walks on out, but let's walk in to explore this little garage. We find a chem station, some psycho on a shelf, a power armor repair station, and a weapons workbench. Very useful. Heading back out, we can chat with Slim.
Hey, Slim.
You got that look, like you jonesing for something. What you looking for? Jet? Buff out? I got it all.
What are you?
You never seen a ghoul before? Don't worry, I ain't gonna bite you. That's just the ferals. You gonna buy something?
Mind if I use your workbench?
Sure, why not? Maybe take that into consideration when you're thinking about what to buy.
Is chems all you got?
Nah, that's just all that most people around here are interested in. Let me show you my wares.
Depends on what you've got.
Uppers, downers, whatever you're looking for.
And I'm so glad that he has unique dialogue. At first, his inventory looks disappointing until we see the syringer rifle in his weapons tab, which is a pretty rare weapon and can be useful depending on your playstyle. I never really found a use for it. And he has a decent chem selection. Much better than Bethany's. He's a great merchant to visit to stock up on stimpaks and Radaway. But he doesn't have any junk or much ammunition to sell. Another way to get here if you don't want to go through DB Technical High School is to cross the street from Hester's Consumer Robotics. His little shop is right across the street. And we realize that Slim here is likely affiliated with the railroad. We find no fewer than 3 rail signs here. One is at the base of a concrete pillar supporting the overpass. All 3 of these are the ally symbol. To find the next one, we go down a tight alleyway between this building and the overpass. We find it at the base of the overpass's support. And to find the final one, we can look on the other side of the concrete building directly across from the garage. I suppose I can understand why a ghoul would support the railroad. To find the next one, we head to Faneuil Hall. From the back of the building facing east, if we turn right to go south, we wade through a bunch of water until eventually we find a little alley with a rail sign and a well-lit fire escape. And at the top of the fire escape, we see a friendly machine gun turret. Like with Slim, this is the ally rail sign, so whomever lives here must support the railroad. Heading into this bottom level, we find another friendly machine gun turret in the corner, a cooking station that we are free to use, and a not red handmade tripwire booby-trapping a hole in the wall into this room. We can disarm them without penalty for the experience, and we find ourselves in a bit of a clothing shop. There isn't anything interesting here. We find some dirty tan suits, some hats and formal wear. We can disarm a shotgun trap, and on the ground here we find an expert locked safe, which again we can pick without penalty. But this nook is a bit of a dead end. Whomever owns these belongings must be upstairs. Strange they'd put their prized possessions on this ground floor. Heading up the fire escape, we see that friendly machine gun turret we saw upon entry, and at the very top we find a bit of an armor and weapons shop. We see an armor workbench and a weapons workbench, and the proprietor of the shop, Opal, standing near to a barrel fire.
Excuse me.
Name's Opal. You got caps, I got goods. Don't be an idiot and we'll get along fine.
Mind if I use your workbenches?
Knock yourself out. Just don't break anything.
Let's see what you got.
Opal has a surprisingly full inventory. Lots of low to mid-level weapons on her inventory, with some higher-end mods including suppressors. Her apparel section is also chocked full of goodies. We even find some Creation Club creations in here, including the Nuka-Cola t-shirts from Eleanor's New Cafe Hola. And she has a fairly impressive aid section. Not a whole lot of rare chems, but we do find some Rad-X and Radaway, some Stimpaks, and even a Nuka-Cola Quantum. She has a couple of Captain Cosmos toy boxes from the Captain Cosmos Creation Club creation, and a huge selection of junk, including multiple scrap shipments. And to top it all off, her ammo selection is superb. Hundreds of rounds of even the most expensive and rare ammunition types, 2mm electromagnetic charges, gamma rounds, plasma cartridges, and fusion cores. Heading behind her counter, we finally find something that's set to own her terminal and a nearby footlocker. Waiting until she turns around, we can hack into this terminal, and sadly all we find inside is the ability to turn on or off her defenses, her spotlight and her turret. Picking the footlocker, all we find are some 10mm rounds and a mining helmet. So she doesn't have much to steal, but she has a wonderful bartering inventory. Now, there are 3 other merchants in the world whose names are just Traitor. There may be more, but these are the 3 that I found. North of Diamond City and east of Hangman's Alley, we find a bridge overlooking a tunnel. Dropping down, we see that the tunnel is flooded. This is Flagon Tunnel. If we wade through the water into the tunnel, we see an opening to the right and a pink flamingo peeking at us. Inside, we find a wooden platform, and here stands a traitor leaning against his fencing.
Hey.
Best scrap in the Commonwealth, right here.
Anything been happening around here?
If you don't mind, prefer to just talk shop for now. A lot of quality goods here.
I'll take a look, sure.
Tragically, he and the other two non-named traitors have generic boilerplate dialogue. This one has a disappointing inventory, 1 apparel item, 1 aid item, 2 miscellaneous items, and a mediocre selection of junk. A couple dozen items, but no shipments available. Though he does have a life preserver in his inventory, which makes sense, he is practically standing in water, so that was a nice touch. And his ammo selection is pitiful. So sadly, even though his shop is in such a cool location, it's really not worth the trip. We find the next traitor by heading to Walden Pond. I'm standing on a hillside southeast of the pond, looking northwest, and from here, if we turn right and look up the hill, we see a shack, off in the distance near to a gunner-infested overpass. As we approach, we see 4 short white obelisks sticking out of the ground, and then we realize that these are grave markers. But these graves are so tiny. What could be buried here? Turning around and heading over to the shack, we immediately realize what was buried there. Cats! Look at all of these cats! There's cat food in the cat bowl by the doghouse, which I suppose is a cat house. There are 3 cats out here by the fire. And looking inside, oh, we see a cat poster on the wall. Looks like we've found the Wasteland's cat lady.
Hey there.
I buy and sell. Just put up everything you got and let's see if we can make a deal.
Let's see what you got.
This trader has a low-level inventory, a decent selection of pipe weapons, and a tidy selection of thrown explosives, including a pulse grenade. She only has 2 apparel items and cat meat in her aid tab. Oh no. Well, maybe she's not a crazed cat lady. Maybe her collection of cats is utilitarian. Maybe she is butchering them for the meat. Though you wouldn't put a gravestone down for something you butchered for its flesh, would you? She has a collection of junk, which is not very impressive, and that's about it. Heading inside her tiny shack, we see cat posters everywhere. No fewer than 3 framed cat portraits. There's another one face down under her bed, but we can't see what's there. There's a footlocker at the foot of her bed, and it's not set to own, so we can loot the ammunition. And she has another cat bowl in here. Disturbingly, when we peer into her doghouse, we find human bones. There's a Brahmin skull nearby, which is understandable. Maybe the cats are playing with it, but are the cats also playing with human bones? This lady's a little creepy. I found the 3rd unnamed traitor by traveling to Forest Grove Marsh. I'm standing on the road northwest of the town, looking southwest at the marsh, and if we turn around and walk west up the road, we find a shack made from scrap metal on stilts beneath a ruined overpass. And strangely enough, we see a safe affixed to the underside of this shack, locked with an advanced lock. Why on earth would a scavenger put his safe outside his shack? This makes no sense to me. Though it's a wonderful fit, it fits right between these 2 posts. Inside, we find some bottle caps and a decent selection of armor, including combat armor. While it was a boneheaded choice by whomever lives in this shack, we find its entrance by walking all the way around it, passing a cooking station and another flamingo. Is the flamingo the international sign of a traitor? We see that it's a small room. There's a sleeping bag on the ground. We can loot some chems from a chem box without penalty. And we find the owner sitting in her chair wearing a postman hat.
Hey, Scaver. Let's trade.
I'll take a look, sure.
But her inventory is really disappointing. All she has is junk, and not much of it.
Arms out of commission, boss.
But it looks like Deacon lured one of the ghouls from the marsh.
Winged!
There we go. In addition to these fixed location merchants, there are 4 other merchants that wander the wasteland, many of whom we're probably already familiar with. The first, of course, is Trashcan Karla. We meet her early in the game, just after we leave Concord. We find her sitting on the ground next to her Brahmin, soaking up the sun.
Hi.
So what's your story? Looking to trade? Rob me? Or just ask directions to Diamond City?
Your money. All of it. Now.
Yeah, I know the drill. This ain't my first mugging. Here. Now leave me alone.
If we rob her, we get 50 caps, but she refuses to talk with us ever again.
Karla.
Ah, the robber. Hey, I paid up, so get lost.
so a better option is to be polite and inquisitive.
Did you say something about directions to Diamond City earlier?
Directions. Figures. Just keep going until you see the skyline. Cross the river. You'll find the Great Green Jewel just inside the city limits.
Just looking for love, sweetheart.
Girl, have you come to the wrong place? My loving days have long since passed. But I'll tell you what, beautiful. You made an old girl smile, and that ain't easy. You want to do some trading? I'll give you a discount.
I've got a few minutes to browse.
Yeah, keep your shirt on.
Trashcan Karla has a whole lot of low-level weapons. Nothing really interesting from mid to late game, but a good source of weapons early on, which makes sense considering where we find her. She has low-level armor, but we do find a few Creation Club creations in here if we have them, including the modular military backpack and some of Eleanor's clothing from the new Cafe Hola, and she has a huge selection of junk for sale, including shipments of junk that are usually hard to find, such as oil, asbestos, and ceramic. After we chat with her for the first time, Trashcan Karla stands up and begins to wander the wasteland, though she rarely travels very far. She likes to walk in a big circle here in the Sanctuary Conquered area. She will visit our other Minuteman settlements in this area, but she doesn't travel that far south. Her traveling patterns are predictable. On Sundays, she visits Sanctuary. On Mondays, she explores the Conquered Ruins. On Tuesdays, we find her at Drumlin Diner. On Wednesdays, she's back to exploring the Conquered Ruins. On Thursdays, we find her far south in Bunker Hill. On Friday, she's back in Concord. And on Saturday, she explores Sanctuary again. Of course, if we have a trade caravan post at our settlements, which we unlock after the battle for Bunker Hill, we can sometimes find Karla in one of our settlements even far to the south. The next wandering merchant is Doc Weathers.
Doc Weathers is guaranteed to patch up any bruises, holes, and diseases you've picked up. But I ain't got no fix for personality.
Are you really a doctor?
Am I a doctor? Let me show you my degree from the School of Saving Wise Asses like you. I'm a positive institution in these parts, so you need help or what? You want news? Want me to rub your feet at the same time? I only got time for one thing. Making caps. Oh, and, helping people.
Yeah. Take a look at me, Doc.
Tell me your problems. I got solutions.
He has all the same options as any other doctor, and we can barter with him.
Actually, I need some supplies for the road.
I got loads of Stimpaks, chems, you name it.
His aid selection is disappointing. We found a better selection of chems on some of the other merchants we've talked about, though he does carry a dick doll, which is pretty rare. He has a meager junk selection and some appropriately clinically themed shipments, including acid and antiseptic, but no weapons and no armor, and hardly any ammunition. Doc Weathers walks a dangerous route. I often find him near the Slog, and to get to the Slog, as you see here, he walks right through Saugus Ironworks, which makes Doc Weathers responsible for often pulling the raiders from Saugus all the way to the Slog. His Brahmin's name is Idiot, which I thought was pretty cute, and unlike Karla, he employs 2 unnamed caravan guards. He also travels to Bunker Hill. Sometimes we see him set up shop inside the town, and like Karla, he has a chance to show up at a Bunker Hill trading post inside one of our settlements. Next up is Cricket, a wandering weapons merchant.
Hey.
Got a hankering for melting face? Then I'm your girl. Come on, come on. Get your guns here. Small booms, big booms. I got them all.
What kind of stuff do you have?
If it can chamber cock and spit out lead, then I sell it. I sell slashers and clobberers too for those maniacs that like it up close. But death flying faster than the speed of sound? My knees are getting weak just from thinking about it.
Let me think it over.
Less time thinking, more time blowing shit up.
Let's see what you got.
Just think how damn good it'll feel holding one of these.
Cricket is crazy, but still one of the best merchants in the game. She has a huge weapons selection, low-level, mid, and end-game weapons, including some legendary weapons. If we've purchased any weapons from the Creation Club, we can find legendary versions of them on her inventory. Here I am exploring a Ghoul Slayer's triple-barrel handmade shotgun. She also has a legendary nimble handmade shotgun, which I showed off earlier. Her inventory is a great place to go to find rare or high-level weapon mods if we don't have the ability to craft them ourselves, but most importantly, she has the unique weapon Spray and Pray, which is the endgame weapon I use on my Miniman character. If you spec into commando and explosives, this is a devastating weapon. She also has the anti-material rifle, though I didn't find any legendary versions on her inventory. Her apparel selection is okay, not a lot of good armor, but we do find some Nuka-Cola shirts and a few sets of spike armor, and she has junk shipments that are only pertinent to weapon crafting: gears, lead, silver, and springs. But her ammo selection is wonderful. As we would expect, she has ammunition for nearly every kind of weapon in the game, sans DLC weapons. She even sells cryo cells. Like Doc Weathers, she has 2 unnamed caravan guards who travel with her. However, she takes a very different route. She tends to hang around Vault 81 and Diamond City. I often find her outside Diamond City, but she also travels to Bunker Hill, the Warwick Homestead, Fallon's department store, and she even goes to Quincy. And like the last 2, she has a chance to appear at a trade caravan post inside our settlements. And finally, there's good old Lucas Sims.
My armor saved many a wastelander.
What kind of stuff do you have?
I sell armor for Old Man Stockton's outfit, based out of Bunker Hill. Been selling armor to smart wastelanders for years. The dumb ones walk away empty-handed, but they don't stay dumb long, if you catch my meaning.
Just looking.
Got it.
Sure. Let's take a look.
What you see is what you get.
As he told us, he just sells armor. We don't find any weapons on his inventory at all. His armor selection is perplexing. He will sell armored versions of Creation Club creations, including the armored Nuka-Cola outfit, but he doesn't sell power armor, he doesn't sell combat armor, he really only sells leather armor, which is frustrating. However, he does sell some unique armor we can't find anywhere else. He sells the left arm of the 3-piece Champion Leather Armor set. It grants us +1 to strength and +1 to endurance. The other 2 pieces to this set are both sold by Becky Fallon in Fallon's basement inside Diamond City. The stats for this are pretty great, but because it's leather, it's really only going to be useful earlier in the game. He also sells the only 2 pieces to the Mantis suit of armor, a left arm and a left greave. Like the Champion, these are both leather pieces of armor, but they are way more expensive. They look more expensive than they really are on this character because she has low charisma. They're usually only half of what we see here, but they're still really expensive for early in the game, and the problem is that by the time we build our character enough to be able to afford these pieces, we no longer need them because we've already got power armor. And finally, he carries the Wastelander's right leg. This is one of a 2-piece leather armor set. We find the other piece on Myrna in Diamond City Market, and it's not really impressive. It just reduces damage from super mutants by 15%. Despite his disappointing inventory for late-game players, he has a wonderful selection of junk, including ballistic fiber. We can purchase an entire shipment of ballistic fiber from him, which is exceedingly rare. Lucas beats a pretty large path, but like Trashcan Karla, he has a set schedule. On Sundays, we find him near Ten Pines Bluff. On Mondays, we find him on the road outside Covenant. On Tuesdays, we find him outside of Greentop Nursery. On Wednesdays, he's back at Covenant. On Thursdays, he's back at Ten Pines Bluff. On Fridays, he's at Bunker Hill. And on Saturdays, he's back at Covenant. All 4 of the traveling merchants are pretty useful and have decent gear. However, all 4 of them have a sinister secret. While in the Institute, if we travel to the Synth Retention Bureau and access the SRB terminal on the top floor, we find an item called List of Informants. The following individuals have proven useful in our reclamation operations. In exchange for caps, these persons have in the past provided information on escaped synth sightings and suspected railroad activity. If you make a new contact, add the individual to the database. Here we find a list of many of the characters we've met in the game, including Cricket, and Trashcan Karla, and Doc Weathers, and Lucas Miller. All 4 of the wandering traders are Institute informants. Something to bear in mind next time they show up at one of our settlements. These are all of the static, unmarked merchants I could find. However, there are many other merchants that appear in random encounters, including merchants like Smiling Larry, who can be convinced to join our settlement as a settler. I'm not going to cover them here because they require their own dedicated video, which I published a while ago. If you want to learn all about the Tier 4 merchants we can recruit to our settlements whom we only find in random encounters, you can watch that video by clicking here. There are also a few other merchants we find in random encounters, whom I will be covering in my series on Fallout 4's Random Encounters. I've already published 3 videos in my series on random encounters. You can watch the first episode here, and I'm working on collecting footage for episode 4, so stay tuned for that. I publish many Fallout videos here on my channel each and every week, so if you want to make sure you don't miss my next episode, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a brand new shirt in the shop. At least I have my Thump Thump. We had a blast during my Caesar's Legion videos using Thump Thump, which saved my bacon on a number of occasions. Celebrate the wonder of this grenade rifle with your very own shirt. The design comes in a variety of both men's and women's sizes and in a wide array of colors. It comes on other products as well, smartphone cases, pillows, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon this week with a brand new video.